Most hypnotherapy trainers out there are going to tell you about the stories of their amazing successes with clients, but today I'm going to tell you a story of one of my very first experiences of failure with a client. Now, again, we have to go way back in time. It's 1996. I'm now working as a professional hypnotherapist. I'm working in London, and I have a client who's coming to see me. And she is a secretary for Prince Charles at Buckingham Palace. So she was coming to see me because she was constantly pulling and scratching at scabs on her arms and on her legs. She'd been on safari to South Africa. She had been badly bitten by mosquitoes. And as a result of that, she had a lot of scabs. And of course, she was feeling somewhat anxious and kept pulling and picking at those scabs, and they were becoming quite infected. And she felt it was a habit, and she really wanted to break that habit. So she had come to see me, and you've got to remember the shyness and the feelings of inferiority and the feelings of overwhelm that marked who I was back then were always there, just bubbling beneath the surface. I hadn't found my confidence. I hadn't stepped into being who I am. And this definitely was one of those experiences that helped to shape me. So anyway, I was taking her through a typical session, so let me just talk you through it. So the first part of a hypnotherapy session is meet and greet, where you welcome your client in and you help them to feel comfortable in your therapy room. And the next thing, of course, you're going to do is you're going to give them the form to fill out. And once they've that filled out, then you're going to ask the right questions so you get to understand exactly what the problem is and what your client wants, what the solution is that they're looking for today. And then, of course, you're going to ask them about their previous experiences of hypnosis. You're going to do some suggestibility tests to understand what happens to suggestions once they enter the mind. And then you're going to do eye fixation, and then you're going to do a lovely induction technique. And I did that, all of those things, it all went okay. And then you're going to do a deepening technique. And the deepening technique that I had chosen was one that's really simple. Everyone knows it. It's the staircase to deep hypnosis. And so you've got to remember, this is 1996. I'm an Irish girl. I'm living in London, and I'm a little wet behind the ears, to put it mildly. And I'm working with this extremely posh lady from Buckingham Palace. And she was lovely. She was beautiful, and she was very nice. And as I am counting her down the staircase, I'm doing the typical script, 10, you're drifting down the staircase, 9, feelings of relaxation are growing stronger. And as you take another breath, you sink down a little, all the way down to 7, 6, blah-de-blah-de-blah, all the way down, 5, and then a little bit more. And then I said 4, and then I said 3. And when I said tree, if you're not from Ireland, the word is 3, not tree. When I said tree, she opened her eyes and she looked me up and down. And she said to me, "What's a tree doing in the middle of a staircase?" And that completely shook me. My accent had stopped her from experiencing hypnosis. And I had a strong leash accent, what we call a bog accent back then. And because I had no confidence, I literally went red from my feet all the way up through my body. I went scarlet, and I felt really challenged, and I just did not know what to do. And this was a fee-paid client, one of my first fee-paid clients. And what was so difficult about the experience was that I had been forced to charge a really large fee. This was, I think, about £300 sterling back in 1995. That was such a lot of money. It wasn't my choice. It was the clinic that I was working in. That was their standard fees for hypnotherapists of my caliber. And I couldn't just walk out. I couldn't just apologize, say sorry and wrap it up. I had to find a way to continue. And I had to find a way to give her the results and the value for the professional experience that she had booked. Now, don't ask me how I muddled my way through that session, because you know what? The shock was so deep at the time that I think I just got complete amnesia for what happened. But I did my best to collect myself, to ground myself, and to find a way to just carry on. And I was really lucky that I had been trained in such a way that we have a process. So as long as I was following the process, it was easy for me to kind of, get my balance back again and to carry on and to give her the therapy that she needed. And so at the end of the session, it was so difficult to not apologize for making such a mess of it, because I kind of felt that I had completely and utterly destroyed it. But instead, my training had taught me to stay strong, to stand firm, and to then kind of ask her those important questions at the end of the session. Right now, tell me, how do you feel? To make sure that she had access to that anchor, and to make sure that she had the skills that when she found her hands kind of wandering down towards her legs, towards one of those scabs, that she had the skills to be able to stop for my words to come into her mind, for her to be able to take a breath, use an anchor, and for her too to stand firm and just to allow that that feeling, that desire to scratch, to just dissipate and disappear. So I stood firm with it, and I kind of asked her those good quality follow-ups questions to make sure that she had the right mindset now to move on. And when she left, I literally put my hands down on the desk and I cried. I just cried because I felt like such a failure. And I remember in the middle of that session, I heard myself speak to myself, and I said, Susan, next time, from here on in, nobody will ever know where you come from. Nobody will ever be able to identify your accent. Not because I was in any way ashamed of my roots or where I came from, but I wanted to have the kind of voice that would not distract anyone from their experience. I wanted to have a voice that was so anonymous that you wouldn't know whether I was from Germany, Australia, Canada, Ireland, England, America, that it was neutral, 100% neutral and accent free. And I remember after that, because my confidence was shook so badly, that I got elocution lessons in order to help me to pronounce my words properly and to make sure that there were no more trees in the middle of any staircases when I did hypnosis. You know what? If it was to happen again, I would have a completely different attitude to it, and it would be like water off a duck's back. But back then, what it did was it amplified my insecurities. It knocked my very, very fragile confidence, and it caused me to actually give a message to my subconscious mind, where I literally wrote the next few chapters of my book, of my life story, where I kind of dictated to myself that I was no good at what I did, that I wasn't competent enough, I wasn't clear enough, I wasn't confident, all those kind of things. Oh, when I think back. Anyway, it's all behind me now. Oh, anyway, so our process back then was a week later, we would always call our clients up and we would always get feedback on how they were getting on. You can imagine this real sense of fear and worry and dread that I had when I had to pick up the phone and to call her and to, again, not have any preconceived ideas or notions about how she got on, but instead to simply ask. I couldn't go and say, I know you had a really difficult session and it didn't work out maybe the way you expected, but I'm just wondering how you got on. You can't do that. because all we can do as hypnotherapists is we do our best work that we can within the moment, and we just hope that somehow the subconscious mind is able to synthesize. The subconscious mind wants the changes, wants to make the improvements, but at the same time there's a bit of resistance to change. We just have to hope for the best. So I called her up and I said, "It's Susan, you were with me last week. I was your hypnotherapist. I was there to help you and I spoke about her problem. I said, how are you now? How are you getting on?" And she told me she had a great week. She had made a mistake. She'd kind of reached out and scratched once or twice, but she had quickly stopped. And she said her legs and her arms were looking so much better, that all of the scabs were gone and that the red marks were beginning to heal. So it was a success. My key takeaway for you on this video is don't allow your own insecurities, your own doubts and your own fears to create a sense of failure. Or if it does, you know what? The best thing to do is to reach out, because if you've trained with me, pick up the phone and tell me about your experience and let me help you and guide you through it. In fact, on the Triple Diploma course, I teach you the processes to deal with those difficult experiences that we all have. Because even today, how many years is it? 1996 to today? That's a long time. Even today, I still have experiences where I kind of feel I could have done better. But I have a process that I take myself through and that I teach on the Diploma course to make sure that you don't repeat mistakes, but that you constantly learn and you grow from them.